months.
If I have the number, I think you guys graduate 246 targets or something. Obviously, a lot of people look at Hakeem and DeShante and Matt Eaton as the three, but who kind of can come along behind them, especially this spring?
Yeah, we do. It's going to be certainly a new look from what you saw a year ago, but some familiar faces sprinkled in there as well. Obviously Hakeem had a chance to make an impact last season and a little bit of his freshman year. DeShante probably a bigger impact 2 seasons ago, and with the emergence of Trevor Ryan's game, kind of didn't get the opportunity to put up some of the numbers he did 2 seasons ago. And then Matt Eaton, I think Matt's a guy, had he been healthy to start the year, probably would have had a few more opportunities than you've seen. So those 3 guys, I think, are certainly in a position to go out there and make up some of those targets and some of those completions. But guys like Tariq Milton have really stepped up and looked great in the first couple of days. Josh Johnson's done a great job out there. You've seen Jalen Martin and Landon Akers, both those 2 who played a bunch on special teams a year ago, but now hopefully getting them in the fold out at the receiver position. And then, we still got 4 freshmen coming in that you certainly never know what could happen in terms of them getting into the mix.
What's Hakeem have to do to be better than he was last year?
Yeah, Hakeem, I think for us, first and foremost, has got to figure out what his role is going to be. Is he going to spend most of his time like he did a year ago on the inside, or are we going to play him on the outside? But Hakeem's skill set is certainly different than what we played at that X position a year ago when you talk about Allen. And, even though both of those guys have size, Hakeem's built a little bit differently. And so, making some of the contested catches that you've seen Allen make in the past, kind of are being able to be a go-to guy in one-on-one critical situations. Those are some things we got to put him in some of those situations this spring to see if he can do it. And the same thing with Matt Eaton. I think both those guys can certainly do some of those things and take over some of that ownership in our offense.
When did you feel like Matt Eaton finally got into a rhythm where he could continually help, or was to a point where you wanted him to be, I guess?
Boy, I don't know if there was ever a point where I felt like he was 100%. I always felt like there were still some things nagging, but probably I would say somewhere about week 4 or 5, probably 5 or 6. Really after that Texas and Oklahoma game, I thought that's where he started to kind of pick up the pace a little bit and show some of the things that I thought he was capable of. But, again, there was such a deep position group a year ago, so much competition within the room that, there were a lot of good players that didn't get a ton of snaps. Jalen Martin, Landon Akers, probably any other given year would have seen the field, but fortunately for us, we were very deep and had a lot of guys that were going out there making plays for us.
As part of the Hakeem thing you mentioned there, does he play inside or outside? What goes into that, and is some of it, I know we talked to Coach Golish the other day, maybe a guy like Chase Allen, those tight ends,
sure,
could even play that inside spot.
Yeah, I think that group has grown up and matured, that tight end position when you talk about Chase Allen, but Dylan Sainer and Charlie Kolar, those 3 guys certainly give us some of that dimension that we had with Hakeem in there. And there'll be a time and place, you guys saw us a couple times last year where every receiver out on the field was taller than 6'4", and some packages down in the tight zones that we're going to do some of that stuff. But no, I think, for Hakeem, it's going to be, giving him a chance to go show what he can do. And again, our offense, one of the great things about Coach Campbell and our system's always been it's players, formations, plays. So it's all built around what our players do really well, and then how do we build the formations and the structure of our offense around that. So whether it's multiple running backs being on the field, a year ago it was 4 receivers. This year it might be 2 tight ends at times. So I think all of that is still yet to be undecided, but really what we're trying to do this spring is really put those guys in situations where they can go out there and show us what their best looks like, and give them a chance to try some different routes, some different concepts that we run and maybe that we haven't run in the past to see what they can do well and what maybe might be a weakness of them.
With some of those smaller receivers, what are you looking for to kind of set them apart a little bit from each other with Tariq or Josh or DeShante?
I think those guys are really fun because they're, obviously with Trevor Ryan a year ago was a fast, explosive player, but those guys, they've got elite quickness. Their foot speed and their transition speed is pretty impressive, but also they have the ability to get up on defenders in a hurry. And if you can isolate them one-on-one in big spaces, that's a tough task to ask of a defensive back. So those guys, I think, you've seen us use them in the screen game, our bubble screens, our quick screens. You've seen them in the quick game, but certainly also the ability to get down the field and crossing routes and some of those things where we can get them matched up on, linebackers, safeties, some guys that maybe don't have the quickness that those guys do.
We've heard you talk about, you and Coach Campbell have kind of raved about Jalen behind the scenes and then a little last year. We only saw that one really good catch on the sideline, but what does he bring to the table that's maybe put him in a position to play?
He's got really good size to him. I mean, he's got a big frame. He doesn't have the height maybe that Hakeem and Matt and Allen had a year ago for us, but he does have some of that thickness and toughness to him. But he's a guy that can go up and, you talk about some of those competitive catches, one-on-one situations with a defender on him. He can go up there and make those plays. So he brings that element to the table. Some areas where we still got to improve with him and certainly has shown some of those things in the first 4 practices. But definitely a guy that, again, a year ago we felt like maybe as a freshman and as a sophomore was probably our best practice player outside of the guys that you saw play on Saturdays. So definitely think his ceilings is pretty high and still got a lot to prove, but a guy we're pretty excited about.
You mentioned that Deshaunte's production dropped off a little bit from year 1 to year 2. How do you get him back up to form?
Yeah, a lot of credit goes to this kid. He from the time we got back in January from the bowl game until we started spring practice, has really redefined himself. He's changed the way he's eaten. He changed his sleeping habits. He's thinned out even though he's put on more weight. He's gotten stronger. He's really taken a lot of time to invest into his craft and really been excited. Our winter workouts, he was probably one of the guys that we felt like had the biggest improvements from a year ago to this year. And then, the first couple of days of practice, very sound. Obviously, as a guy that has played a lot, so his assignments are usually on point. But definitely excited about what Deshaunte, how he's been able to bounce back from a year that maybe some guys would be disappointed of. But he's come back even stronger than we've ever seen him before.
Have you I know